Hey everyone, welcome to the CareerMetis Podcast. This is your host Nissar. This is episode 83 of the CareerMetis Podcast, and this particular episode is now is another one in the series which I call the Leadership Expert Series. If this is the first time you're joining us, what I've been doing is in this particular Leadership Expert Series, I've been bringing leadership consultants, coaches, experts in the whole area of leadership, and they share their wisdom and ideas on how we can pick up on those skills and improve our careers. And for today's episode, I am interviewing Andreas Jones. He's an award-winning, best-selling author, life and business strategist, consultant. He was an Army combat veteran, and he's a regular columnist, magazines, online publications such as Forbes, the Huffingtonpost, lifehack.org, etc. With over 12 years of experience in leadership, entrepreneurship, business planning, operations, Andreas has breadth and depth of experience needed to quickly understand businesses and craft the most suitable solutions. He's also a published author. His book is called Battle Tested Leadership. It is available on Amazon. I'm sure we'll learn a little bit more about that as well. Without further ado, our guest, Andreas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Really do appreciate it.
So before we get into the whole concept of leadership and also learning more about your experience, one of my favorite questions I always ask my guests is where are they calling from?
Atlanta, Georgia, United States.
Atlanta is, if anyone living in North America or even Europe, they have heard of Atlanta. I think the 1996 Olympics was held there.
Yes.
But for the people who do not know, or even more of a fun stuff here, could you share with us a fact about Atlanta that most people do not know unless they have been there for a long, long time?
Yeah. So fun fact about Atlanta, we have the world's busiest airport. There's a plane taking off or landing every 4 seconds at the Atlanta airport.
Every 4 seconds?
Yeah.
Wow.
A plane taking off or landing, yeah.
I can only imagine how hectic that sounds. I don't know how the people who work there do it. So that's amazing. I did not know that. I haven't been lucky enough to visit Atlanta yet, but it is on my list of cities in the U.S. where I would like to visit. So maybe you can help us out by telling a little bit about yourself, how your journey, how you got to be a leadership expert.
Yeah, so my journey pretty much started in my home country, Jamaica. So I grew up in Jamaica, then migrated to the United States. At age 17, went into the U.S. military, joined the U.S. Army at 17, then transitioned out of the military into the corporate world. It's been quite a journey coming from a little small island of 2.5 million people, to the United States of 350 million people. Just adjusting, learning new culture. So there's a lot of introspection that I had to do in order to set up myself for success. And one of the ways I did that was through mentors and seeking out guidance from experienced professionals who are in the fields that I wanted to explore.
That's very interesting, and sounds like in your story you've had a few transitions. One was from Jamaica to the U.S., and the second one was being in the Army to a career as a civilian. I'm just curious, before we get into some of the deep topics here, you've actually successfully managed your transition, and that's actually a good concept, because we live in a world, and when it comes to, especially in the business world, the careers, everything is dynamic. So for someone like you who has done it successfully, what do you recommend are some of the key ideas people can have or take from this for transitioning from one position to another or from one situation to another?
Absolutely. So I guess the first thing goes without saying is you have to be absolutely clear of what you want to do. So you can't just throw stuff against the wall and try to see what sticks. That strategy is not effective. It doesn't work. You have to know exactly what you want to do. Then you have to start seeking out people in that space, build relationships, which is just of most importance. That's the way I've been able to transition successfully through all the transitions that I've made. It's just building the right relationships, and as again, seeking mentorship and seeking guidance along the way, because I don't think any one person can do it all by themselves. And, I just think it's selfish of you not to leverage the insights and experience of others, when you could do that and make a difference in your life and your family's life and create a better future for yourself.
That's an excellent point. So the idea I got from that is no matter what situation you transition to, you need the help of others. So it's you should be the type of person, no matter what you do, who's able to build those relationships, networking with the right people, etc. So that's what I heard from that.
Absolutely, yes.
So I know the theme of this interview is leadership. So I'd like to start off by asking you, what does leadership mean to you?
Pretty much leadership means to me, leadership is at its core is all about influence. If you can't influence people, then you can't lead. So, leadership is influence, and the absolute foundation of leadership is trust. People don't trust you, you can't lead them. And so just with those two things in mind, I think that is absolutely important to, if you're a leader or if you're looking to go to a leader, get to know people, get to understand, what drives them, and also, carry yourself and behave in a way that garners their respect and trust. And so that, when that time's come for you to make the tough call, even though it might not be the most popular decision, they trust you enough to go along with it. We see that all the time in sports, when a coach, you might make a call, the best player in the team, he might not like the call, but he trusts the coach enough to make the right call, and he goes along with it. Mm-hmm. And more oftentimes than not, they're successful by trusting the coach, when the coach makes a call. So it's just understanding people and creating that environment of trust and respect along the way.
I would like to expand further with this whole idea of battle-tested leadership. I know this comes from your personal experience, but maybe you can explain further. What does that really mean, battle-tested leadership?
Yeah, so the whole concept of battle-tested leadership, it just speaks to my journey of, I call it trial by fire situations, as a transitioning from Jamaica to the United States and then into the military. Had to relearn a whole new culture, just having to go through all these different stages of growth and development. And it's with that perspective and experience that the battle tested comes into play. That these are things that have been tried and tested and proven to work, that has worked.
Okay. So this does tie into your whole experience in the Army, and you are applying that to the real world. Not the real world, the business world. Okay. Would you mind sharing one or two ideas within the battle-tested leadership, what that would, just a gist of what, or a preview of what that would look like?
Yeah. So battle-tested leadership pretty much is, so in the military, one thing that we do very well is we put people in their strength zone. So if your strength is communication, we try to make sure that's where you go and that's where you serve best, because that's where you could make the most impact. And so that's something the military has taught me and then has done very well, is to make sure that people are aligned with their strength zones so that teams work efficiently and effectively.
So it refers to working on your strengths as opposed to doing things for the sake of doing it.
Correct.
Okay. So I have a question that does come up a lot of the time. I know you hear this all the time where they say, work on your strengths. So what should people do with their weaknesses? Should they ignore it, or should they still try to rectify it?
No, don't ignore it. Try to make it better, but the majority of your time shouldn't be spent trying to eliminate your weaknesses. Got to continue developing your strengths. And by doing so, you inadvertently also eliminate some of your weaknesses. As you get stronger, you build in persistence, you build in consistency. Those things go a long way. So don't forget them. So work on them, but don't spend majority of your time trying to get rid of your weaknesses and forget your strengths. And don't get lost in trying to be strong everywhere. That's why you have other people. You leverage other perspectives, leverage others' experience, leverage others' knowledge. So you don't have to know it all or do it all by yourself.
So it goes back, one of the things you said early, right? It's about working with other people, working together, so you can leverage someone else's strengths and you work on your strengths, and together you are able to do the things that you want to do. So you don't necessarily have to focus on fixing everything. Find people who can complement you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So a question that always comes up is, or even a concept, the whole idea of a leader versus follower, and the only a handful of people are leaders versus followers. So but do you actually believe that, where not everybody should be a leader?
No, I think that's a false. It's false. So my belief is that everyone is a leader, because the most potent form of leadership is self-leadership. So yeah, you have to be able to lead yourself. You have to be able to guide and direct yourself before you can lead and direct anybody else. So
what does that mean, like self-leadership? Because typically, the reason I'm asking that, right? Typically, for the average person, when they think of leader, they think of a team, they think of leading a group of people. But what is? Can you expand on
self-leadership? Is basically just taking the initiative to say, okay, what can I do? What can I control? Knowing that there's stuff that you can't control and nothing you can do it, but taking the initiative to say, okay, I can fix this, I can do this better. I'm going to do what I'm able to do and not let all the other outside influences keep me trapped or keep me stuck. So it's just taking the initiative to say, okay, while I might not be able to change everything, I can change this, I can do this better. So that's self-leadership.
So it starts with awareness, right? Knowing yourself. Okay, interesting. Your words are a word of encouragement, because you said everybody could be a leader. Everybody's a leader. For those out there who think this idea sounds good, but do not have the belief or the conviction that is possible, what would you say to them? What can they do?
Absolutely. That it's possible. It's definitely possible to be a leader. I think the greatest thing you can do is lead from where you are. So a lot of time we get so stuck in trying to figure out the future and don't appreciate the present. So lead from where you are, control what you can control, and do what you can do.
Lead from where you are, and you also mentioned control what you can do. And the more you do that, eventually you are able to start doing more things, newer things, and expand on your skill set, right?
Okay. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So one other question I have is, in your experience, or even in your own life, who do you think stands out really well as a leader? Is there any, like what I'm asking you, do you have a favorite leader?
Absolutely. I'll say John Maxwell.
Yep.
He's that one. I told my manager I wanted to be a good leader. For one of the books he gave me was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got involved with John Maxwell, to the point of being certified by him to teach his material as a John Maxwell, certified leadership coach and trainer. So it's just taking the initiative. It's okay, well, I read this book. How can I meet this guy? And traveling to different events where he was going to be, to meeting and to eventually being a part of the John Maxwell team. So he definitely stands out as a person who not only walks the walk, talks the talk, but also walks the walk.
Yeah, definitely. He's an amazing speaker as well, and a wonderful author. And when you think of leadership and personal professional development, his name is one of the few that comes out.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned that he did impress you, but I'm just curious, was that anything, what is your biggest takeaway? Because everyone I ask about John Maxwell has one good takeaway. And for me, it was doing something every day. I love his speech. I've listened to that on YouTube where he says, whatever it is, you have to do it every day. And that's why he has been able to write tons of books, because he does it every day. That was my favorite. What is your favorite John Maxwell idea or strategy?
Yeah, favorite idea from John Maxwell is that to just love people, care about people, care about their well-being, care about what they want to do. One of his favorite stories he tells is when his headquarters was in San Diego and he wanted to move it to Atlanta, Georgia. When he announced he wanted to move all the employees except one person moved to Atlanta, because they loved and respected him that much that they moved their families and everything to Atlanta, just so they could continue being with and work and serving him. So I think that speaks volumes to what he writes about and how that takes place in his daily life, that, his employees would want to relocate their whole families just to continue that relationship.
That's amazing. We are coming closer to the end of our interview here. And I mean, you've shared some key ideas here. And before we wrap up here, any last words that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, absolutely. I'll say, if you have a dream, don't wait one more day to pursue it. Pursue it now. Go after your dream. Be bold in your pursuit of your dream. So one of the things I constantly, talk to my friends and my wife about is, live boldly. Dream boldly, live passionately, love sincerely, and lead courageously. And I think just with that mantra of life, you could make an impact, however small or however large it is. That's dependent on you. But I strongly believe that everyone can make an impact and make the world a better place before we all leave this earth.
I love that. That's an amazing, amazing call to action. If people wanted to find out more about you or learn from you, what are some of the best ways to reach you?
Yeah, the best ways to reach me definitely on my website, battletestedleadership.com. There you could connect with me through all my social media. You can email, call, whatever you need to do. If you want to talk to me, I'm available to talk and help anyone who seeks that out.
Thank you very much. I'll make sure to include those in my show notes. But Andreas, it was amazing having you as a guest. You shared some key ideas, which I'm sure myself included. I found it valuable, but I'm sure the audience as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of the CareerMetis Podcast. As mentioned, I have written a brief summary of the interview, but links to Andreas' website. If you enjoyed this episode and also learned something new, feel free to post a comment or a review. And if you really loved it, definitely go ahead and share this episode among your network. Until next time, this is Nissar Ahmed, your host for the CareerMetis Podcast. Thank you.